I've been struggling a lot lately with the mechanics of Flesh and Blood, and in looking at the meta and what is being commonly played, I can appreciate diversity, but there's still a dominant force that makes it too common to have an experience that just isn't any... Dang it. I'll accept that I have had a fair share of frustrating experiences lately playing Flesh and Blood, so where some of this is inspired by that frustration, I can't be blind to the fact that, over the course of playing the game for the last 2 years, the core enjoyment of a true back and forth is... Dang it. Okay. You know what? Maybe Twitter's not the best place to have this conversation. Two quick things real quick. One, beer of the day is not a beer. I don't like drinking on Sunday nights, honestly. So it's an apple soda. I didn't know they made apple soda, but this is Postobon out of, I think, South America, but it's canned in New York. So, like, yeah, it doesn't really matter. But yay. That's one. Number two, I'm noticing I'm having a little bit of kind of like a little bit of a medicine day. So if you kind of hear me, like, tense up and clench up and the breathing is a little bit weird, that's the reason. My apologies. Anyway, context. First things first, some of you who are coming to this as a result of kind of the Twitter conversation, let's start with, this is going to be a bit of a different conversation. I'm not going to blast the community. I poked the bear poked back. And in 280 characters, it's kind of hard to get a point across, especially if, there's a point. And so, there was some kind of like get goods and kind of a couple of like dumb comments here and there that I'm like, kind of whatever. What do you expect from Twitter? It's not exactly like my starting was in like a point of greatness either. But I'm doing this, but if you're thinking is like, oh, let's just attack them for a longer version, like I'm going to try to be more constructive here. So no, I'm not attacking the community at all or anything along those lines. In a weird way, I'm kind of not actually even attacking the meta more than I'm appreciating a trend as the meta continues to kind of get attacked for things. And it's just something that every time we've had kind of an issue with the meta, really since Monarch, the theme has actually been the exact same, regardless of whether or not it's control or whether or not it's aggro. And I want to talk about that. And that's going to be kind of my theme, and I want to show my work. So super quick context. Went off a little bit on Twitter. Played Talishar last night. Went against FAB, went against Kano, went against Icelander in that order. Now, some of you might be thinking like, ugh, and others might be like, so what? Not an issue. And that's kind of what I got hit for on Twitter. It's like, so what? What was the issue? And I didn't exactly articulate what the issue was. You're supposed, you throw something out, you assume that the community who agrees with you is just going to flock and say, yes, I'm with you. Yeah, no. Sort of, kind of dumb on my part, but again, that's why we're here, and it spawned some fun conversation where I try to pick out the essence of my actual problem, the essence of the issue. So let's get right down to what's the essence of the issue that I've had. As I kind of look at the meta and as I look at just things, I don't just play a ton. I own that. I'm not going to be your force on what's good competitively or not. What I can do is I can read reactions, I can watch games, I can see trends, I can see themes. And here's the theme. Here's the thing. I feel like my opinion right now is that the value of a card in hand, these are all tokens for a reason. The value of a card in hand it just doesn't feel balanced right now. There are certain heroes that have no problem just ignoring what you do, and the value of their card in hand is every function that it has, and it's kind of between its resource and its defense. It doesn't really matter, yet the game offsets it anyway. Like Phi's offset is that all of his cards are 2. They block for 2. And I'm looking at it as like, he has really no intention to block with any of them. So does it really matter if it was 2 or if it was 0? Like, is that really the offset here? And I also look at things like ice in general, which requires a plethora of things to balance it out, even in the slightest of ways. And it doesn't, that's a thing that doesn't have to be reciprocated. So I look at things like the banned and restricted announcements, and I look at really the Living Legends board, and I'm starting to get this feeling that the strategic choices made between when to like defend and do stuff with your hand versus what to do with my turn, I feel the needle is shifting in the does it really matter kind of direction, regardless of whether or not it's aggro or if it's control, because aggro just doesn't care about the stuff in your hand. FAB will out-tempo you anyway, but if you start stripping stuff, it becomes an issue. In the case of something like Icelander doesn't want you to play, so you're offsetting everything with blue just to try to survive stuff, and stuff is still getting stripped anyway, so it's not like, it's not like you're really playing all that much, unless you have something that can do a heck of a lot with very few resources, which pretty much just knocks mid-range just right the hell out, with some exceptions, but we're going to get into that. So here's going to be kind of the first aspect of me showing my work is going to be from looking at living legends. And before anybody comes out and says, you can't just look at the living legend. Yeah, you can. When you have a game that does not have really any actual semblance of support for the casual, the only thing that you really can do is look at how the competitive meta often shakes out. So let's take a look at living legend real quick. And I've got kind of a thought process here, which is the victors, the ones who have the better chance at things, are the ones who don't actually rely on their hand to win. They just don't. Top to bottom, right? Let's go top to bottom of the living legends, and I'll kind of show you what I mean, and you'll watch it fizzle. First off, we'll start with Starvo, and we're just gonna that's kind of a weird, like, it was so poorly balanced at the end of the day. Like, that's just bringing a knife to a gunfight. No matter of, like, do you really need your hand? That's like the one exception to the rule, but Starvo was just off. But anyway, let's move next. Chain. The thing about Chain didn't really need his hand, did he? He had the Banish Zone. A lot of his, he always had access to like a 9-10 card hand at the end of the game, depending on what was in the Banish Zone. So he needed the Banish Zone. He didn't need his hand in order to really succeed. Prism won through an aura-heavy board state. You didn't really see Iris doing a lot of things in the meta. It was all about Luminaris and having those auras attack and be able to get go again. And the spectral shields and spectras in general and all that. Like, Prism relied on a board state. Not as much the hand. Some parts of the hand, but when you don't need this as much, when you have other things like Embodiment and Rune Chants and Soul Shackles, the Banish Zone and Frostbites, when you have all these things that are satisfying your win condition and they're not necessarily relying on your hand in order to really kind of utilize them, the value of the cards in your hand gets substantially greater. Or I should say, I'm sorry, the value of the cards in your hand gets substantially reduced. My fault. I don't need these as much if I've got the board. So yeah, Prism was Spectrum and whatnot. Briar was these. And before you say it was anything else, keep with the fact that she slowed the living hell down after they changed her, so that way you couldn't just stack these on top of each other. But this is effectively a board state that does not require the hand too much. Even the Embodiment of Lightning, yeah, it did require the hand, but it also could stick around and be saved for next turn. It was a mechanic that didn't rely on the hand. Oldham doesn't really rely on the hand, does he? Because the whole point is fatigue. None of the cards, none of the cards in his hand are really like expended, because between his effect as well as like things like Crown of Seeds, which is not in your hand, that's the arsenal, and the shield, not in your hand, literally equipment, as well as the fact that pitching for all of those collectively either gives you a hand advantage, because chances are he's using Tunic, or it makes it so I can get a lot of defense for something that just isn't nearly expendable. Blocking 7 by pitching and sacking a card is significantly more value than dropping 2 cards from my hand in order to do the same thing. Those cards become expendable. Or not, gosh, I'm so bad at words right now. Those cards get expended. Those cards get discarded and they're gone. That's why Oldham fatigue is a thing, because his win condition is a matter of I am constantly recycling resources, because things on the board are what's kind of satisfying my condition. I have so much leverage of stuff that's out there. Icelander, same thing. The Arsenal, that's a board thing. Yeah, you need some cards in your hand, but that's a board thing, as well as things like the Affiliations and Insidious Chills. And there's a board state that Icelander can create, as well as being able to do it on your turn. So again, doesn't just need the hand. Viserai, leveraged Rune Chants. The only reason he didn't go balls to the wall freaking crazy is because they banned Bloodsheath Skeletta. That was just I'm going to save up and get a ton of card advantage all of a sudden. Dash is a funny one. This is the one that I feel is like the biggest strength towards this idea is the fact that Dash is constantly a control, like she's constantly like a meta spoiler. She constantly sneaks in. It's just like, wow, that's like annoying and doing some serious work, up to the point where she's 5th in the current Living Legend, despite not actually having a main set support her. Why? Well, what's the meta like? It's either you get some like the aggro control, which usually doesn't do as well, or you're doing the pistol thing, which is developing a board state and not relying so much on your hands. You've got the items, and all you really need for this is I just got to pitch a couple things. I just got to pitch this. So I suddenly have 3 cards that are expendable. I have 3. The value of these is substantially reduced because I've got a board state helping me. Phi, similar things. You're like, well, what's his board state? His board state is basically tutor, as well as he's got the graveyard. He can just, his existence for moving on, regardless of whether or not it's successful, gives him access to something from the graveyard to be able to chip damage in and just like keep going. And between stuff like tutor, which I forgot what the card is, like if you played a red card, go get a Phoenix Flame, which I know isn't used that much, but still a tutor. You had the mask. You pick your mask, right? Pick your mask. It's I've got card advantage, which makes these less, or I've got the Pouncing Lynx, which is basically a tutor. So more in that realm of like I've got things that are not in my hands that are greatly helping my ability to kind of move forward with the condition. And then you go down the line, you look at everything that is basically fizzled just into nothingness. Katsu +2 in the last one. Like he had his moment of the sun, but Katsu's got 348 Living Legends points because Katsu's from Welcome to Wraith. So like pick your battles there. Bravo tends to sneak in a little bit, but because he's got that good hand disruption, but he's never been like he's been like a true slow crawl. He's been kind of what I feel like the Living Legend system was kind of supposed to be, of like a little bit maybe of a slower crawl, a couple of little big hits, but like neat. Dorinthia, one were like all in Welcome to Wraith, but Dorinthia, same thing. Yeah, you've got the Dawn Blade, but like it swings for it swings for 3. But you need the hand. Like she doesn't have a board state to like really leverage. Lexi definitely doesn't have a board state to do that. And the only times that she really did was when she was ice. Most of the time she did was when she was ice Lexi. I think there was a lightning Lexi build that did okay, but that was like before ice got the support that it did, and then everyone just switched over to ice Lexi. Rhinar, same thing, no real established board state. Bolton doesn't have an established board state. Dromai's only real struggle right now is because she has a board state, but Ice just like old him. I'm just gonna stop this. Like the risk reward with Dromai right now is because Guardians are at least Oldham's like big in the meta. So I don't know how far I really take that. And yet Kana, Levi, Arachne, and Azalea. So there's my kind of initial, like, there's thought 1, okay, of the heroes that are doing really, really well are the ones that don't have a sole reliance on the hand. So everybody else that does have a sole reliance on the hand, they provably just lose. Editing Joe super quick. Like I get that lose is is a little bit probably too aggressive a word, because even this Living Legends shows that there's there are plenty that are also like winning. They all have Living Legends points, so they're capable of getting through something. But I'm in this case I'm kind of looking at like your actual ratios as far as like kind of the longer element of the game. I don't expect any from 7 down to be doing anything in any actual like big tournament after a while, and these are kind of odd little one-offs. Like ProQuest season it's the difference between, is your ProQuest season like new and does it have like 8 or 10 people participating in it, or is it like a 40-50 thing endeavor? And I feel like it's a little bit staggered. Like the bigger your tournament is, the more likely you're going to find that Oldham Icelander Phi thing going. So lose was kind of a bad word there. I apologize for that, but I don't see like a big impact really being made by anything down below, even though they're able to get kind of a couple little chip shot wins in here and there, and probably some kind of different little different areas of the world. There we go. It just it doesn't really it doesn't matter. And it goes into that like risk reward of like, if they have those benefits, why is it that the heroes that don't have some sort of extra benefit. Why are the cards in their hands equally valued to everybody else who also gets to establish a board state at little to no actual penalty? And that's the thing that kind of, that's what's like really frustrating me right now. It's the same issue that I have with Arcane. Like with Arcane, if I want to leverage Arcane, if I really were to go that route, let's see, I had kind of the list down of like everything. I wrote it. I'm trying to find it. I apologize. I had a whole thing. Okay, yeah, here we go. So between things like Ice and things like Arcane, like in order for me to really deal like kind of with Arcane proper, I'm going to ignore the stripping cards aspect. In order for me to like deal with Arcane, I've got to dumb down the deck. I've got to force a reduction in the equipment that synergizes with kind of things that I do. Like Arcane gets to have their stuff, and it's fine. I have to dumb down for it. Like I have to adjust and dumb down my equipment, and I have to increase like pitch count, which overall dumbs down the attack value of the deck. This is why I think Ice is so dominant right now, is they have to do all those things. Ice Lantern strips cards, increases the resource requirements of every single thing that you do, forces a reduction in equipment if you even want to deal with the ice aspect of it, and it dumbs down the deck if you just want to survive all the frostbite stuff, because I'm swapping like reds for blues and things like that. And that sucks, especially when there's nothing that they need to do to reciprocate. They don't need to reciprocate at all. There's not like why I don't need to change too much, really. And I know some of you are gonna be like, yeah, but you got to deal with like the old, you got to deal with like these one or two pieces of the meta. Like, yeah, that's one or two, but they are notoriously like well powered over everything else. I don't care what you say. They're stats. There's actual stats that show this. Like you're looking at it. You can look at the calling. You can look at the battle. You can look at the battle hardened. Let's top eight for Belgium. Oldham, Phi, Briar Dash, Oldham. So there's Oldham. There's 3 Oldhams in there, and then again, all things that have like a board state set up. They don't require things in the hand. Top 8 in, where are we? What's this one? Indianapolis just recently. Hamilton, GOAT, greatest of all time, period. But Icelander, Oldham, Icelander, Oldham, Briar, Oldham. Okay. Top 8s in New Jersey. January 18th, Oldham, Icelander, Briar, Oldham. 2 Bravos in there. That was pretty cool. That's pretty neat. Hand disruption stuff. Nice little thing, but still Oldham, Icelander, Briar, board state. Mm-hmm. And then Bravo sneaks in, probably mostly because he's like your other like good hand disruption. He's your hand disruption guy. So there you go. Battle hardened leads. Oldham, Icelander, Oldham, Icelander. Those are top 8s. Like, I don't care how diverse you think the meta is. I don't care how many different people are playing things, because it's nice that so many different people are playing things, but there's a point where I'm like, is this like a moral objection that you have to playing other stuff? Are those just not fun and you want to do it, so you want to try with something different? That's not exactly a healthy meta. That's more of a fed-up meta. Diversity doesn't mean shit when this is still the theme and the trend of the things to track. And I think that as it goes and as it grows and as we continue on, you're gonna see similar things. I'm a little worried about outsiders. Like, I know that between let's be real, between inertia, frailty, and blood rot pox, or whatever that one is, the pox. What do you think the meta's gonna be? Take a good, big, dumb, wild guess. Do you think it's gonna be the sort of hurts the arsenal and maybe weaponry stuff, which, like, okay, but also no, none of people play this rounds on me, so they really don't care about that one. Do you think it's going to be basically the Seek and Destroy? The Seek and Destroy card? No, because if I had my choices, if I wanted to put my investment in something, I am more interested in dealing 2 damage to you unless you spend 3. And it's a board state mechanic. Once again, it's a board state mechanic, which means the value of these mean a heck of a lot less, because I'm relying on the board to do the work, to do a lot of the work. Now, you're probably listening to kind of the tone here and saying, is like, that shouldn't be a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. I don't necessarily find that per se to be a bad thing, except it doesn't really feel like it's that appreciated by FAB, by LSS, as we move on. As you look at like the banner restricted list, and that's going to be the next avenue of this. So I want to look at Band Restricted. And I had to take a break. Like, doing this in one take's a little bit rough and kind of a medicine day, so apologies. So yeah, looking at Band Restricted, I want to look at the reasons why things are banned, to kind of continue the value of a card in hand is not nearly what it once was, and it feels a little bit imbalanced. It feels kind of regularly imbalanced, where the needle swings too far in either direction, and why it doesn't really matter if the meta is aggro or control. This is a consistent theme throughout. So all the way back to the beginning. We're not going to do every card. I'm going to try to crack this under 10. Get this thing finished under 10. So Drone Brutality. One of the tension points we have, which we believe underpins interesting and meaningful gameplay, is when players are forced to evaluate the cost of defending with high impact cards. The trade-off between defend what my opponent is doing versus the cost of no longer having the high impact card in my deck. And Drone of Brutality ignored that because it was always expendable, because it would just come right back in the deck. You'd always have it. So they get rid of that, like, as a fundamental, like, that kind of goes against it, and that was good, but it still opens that door to the value of the card in the hand. The trade-off between defend what my opponent's doing versus the cost of no longer having this card in the deck. And I feel that needle has shifted it doesn't really matter. It doesn't feel like there's that give and take anymore. There's that meaningful choice. It feels like the meaningful choice right now is, it's a control meta. You should have picked against the control. You should have aggressively picked against the control. And I look at the diversity in the heroes that people are playing. I look at the diversity, and I still look at, like, who's winning competitively, and I'm saying, like, I don't really know if this is a sign of health or a sign of, screw it, we just don't want to play this way, and we just want to go and have fun things. And everybody else who is like, get good, which, fuck you guys, get good, are just raffle stomping living crap out of it all. And there's elements of that I can appreciate, of, like, if you're playing like a bad deck, like I play Azalea as a main, I appreciate elements of, like, I'm going to lose a lot more often. But I also want to appreciate that there should be some feeling of meaningful choice in at least every game. There should be. Azalea sucks for a lot of reasons, but she has some really kind of frustrating things. Like, getting into a Riddle lock, getting into a Red in the Ledger lock sucks, but it's also not consistent. Crippling Crush sucks, especially when it's dominated, but it's not consistent. It's not every turn I have this constant threat of, you don't get to play the game anymore. Or, it doesn't matter what you did, I'm going to ignore all of that, and that's basically where FA's at. So bad to the point that they banned Belittle, not because of the effect of Belittle as its own card, or Middoism being too powerful, but looking at it and saying, it's like, oh yeah, we just gave Phi 2 free resources. That's dumb, and that's not an effect problem. That's a value of the card in the hand. All I have are tokens, so I'm representing cards in the hand. These lose a lot of value all of a sudden when they're, kind of the off-putting elements of it can just be offset by, I can go tutor. I can just go tutor. I've got board state things that either screw up and dramatically increase the value of the cards in your hand, to the point where it almost doesn't even matter. Like, when I say, like, increase the value, it doesn't mean, like, increase the potency or that. It means that losing one is infinitely worse. Having me lose one of these is a lot more devastating all of a sudden, and that's Phi's problem. Like, the value of his cards in his hand are absolutely incredible on the opponent's turn. Because as soon as you start stripping them, that's when Phi goes. And that's kind of like, even they said when they banned Belittle, of, like, when Ice goes, like, we don't want to hand the keys to the castle to Phi. Or even, like, even though we're reducing it, we don't want to hand the keys to the castle to Phi, because they know that these don't mean as much if they're all there. Like, if I get to keep all of these, like, it doesn't matter, I'm just gonna go. There's no strategic and meaningful choice for Phi on, do I want to get rid of these or not? It's either you got rid of these, or Phi doesn't care. That's how Phi, that's Phi. That's how it works. We just go. Yeah, maybe a couple little ones here and there, a couple little blocks here and there, but again, I'm looking at the big consistent thing. So, Dronabitality of every card counts. I don't feel that every card counts anymore. I don't feel like that's a thing that matters so much. Looking at some other ones. Looking at a couple other ones. Like Seeds of Agony. Seeds of Agony was banned because it was just, that was 9 cards that wanted to be in the Banish Zone. And when I have access to the Banish Zone, these don't matter as much. The stuff in hand doesn't matter nearly as much. So it's either they're expendable, like usually it just means like these are expendable. I've got a board state doing all of this work, and that element sucks. Looking at, let's see, looking just Briar in general, but let's look at Plunder Run. Plunder Run wasn't banned until Briar. And the reason that it really wasn't banned until Briar, and they talked about this specifically, is it's normal for 6 to 9 copies of Plunder Run, both Prior and Chain, both Runeblade. Like, Runeblade in general is just a problem, because of just pincer damage, and these have a ton more value because I both have to either look at it to defend physical stuff, or I have to pitch it to defend arcane stuff. Something's getting through. And it's really aggressive, and Plunder Run was just a constant, easy way, including with things like Spellbound Creepers, to add potential potency to cards with additional effects of like, oh, I can make the Plunder Run thing happen, and I can go again. And I'm gonna get cards. I'm gonna keep getting cards, and I'm gonna have just card draw over and over and over. And Briar Cheerios was a thing, and they're like, it's not that like the individual, drawing multiples is clunky, and they knew that. It's a matter of when you have 6 to 9 and it's so incredibly consistent, as well as that risk and reward of like, I'm going to draw this, and then I also like, I need to just be able to use it, but like over and over, and you stack it to like things like Force of Nature, and you stack it to like Snatch, and it's just like, well, you can always go again. You're always going to have, even the stuff that doesn't have go again has go again. So a lot of that stuff draws cards. You got a ton of other things that draw cards. You got Plunder Run that both helps Force of Nature and draws cards. You got too many things that let you draw cards, and when that ends up happening, these become a lot less impactful because I've got a draw mechanic that's letting me draw a heck of a lot more, and it's something that's happening on the board. Plunder Run was like effective in Arsenal, and embodiments of lightning are board state things, and they're things that come from Briar as a hero, not anything in the hand. So again, a continued concern, a continued, like, the hand is less a thing. The hand, and so if you're going to do this, like, if this is the avenue you're going to go, and this is the avenue that we're going to go, and I don't want to like, I forgot if I said it before, but, like, I don't mind that being a thing. I don't mind that being a thing. But you should embrace and appreciate that that's going to be a thing, and it should be done a little bit more. And I think that's going to be one of the things that's going to be interesting with Outsiders, is looking at the debuffs, effectively. And, like, looking at the debuffs and just saying, one, where do you think this is going to go? Like, how easy is it? How easy is it going to be for me to get pox on somebody and let the board state do the work? Like, there's a card that literally says, I'm going to give you 2 poxes. If there's a card that says, I'm just going to give you pox, and that's it, fuck it. They missed the point. Because that is incredibly minimal stuff in your hand. But now I've created a board effect, a board state where these don't matter as much anymore. Like this doesn't mean, that stuff in my hand doesn't mean anything because I got a board state that's doing it. And it's just, hey, all it takes for you is just 6 damage, and that effect stopped it. Well, great. That was all it took for me was 1 guard. Neat. Like that's the arcane problem. It's like all it takes is like, I'm gonna hit you for 3. Like I'm gonna hit you for 3 arcane damage. All it takes is like, and all it takes for you is like the card and the pitch. And I think even in some cases just the card. But also, like, and for me, it takes the pitch, which is 1, 2, or 3 cards, depending on what I got. Usually it's 1 or 2. I just take the stupid thing. Plus, it's a rotation of equipment. So, no, your 3 damage is not just 3 damage. Your ability to do that kind of damage is me rotating other things, and I've got to adjust and screw up my board stuff, and it's not reciprocated. That stuff is not reciprocated, and that's the thing that's frustrating me a heck of a lot about the meta and where things are at. And if you're going to get into that, if that's what we're going to see in Outsiders, there needs to be some some reciprocation. I want the risk and reward back. I don't feel there's risk and reward outside of I played this hero and I'm risking that the counter meta didn't show up. There should be elements of strategic and meaningful choice, even in games where I am the underdog. And I feel like that's a divide that just gets bigger. It's either you're a really heavy underdog, or you just really, really wanted to see how Katsu was gonna do. That sucks. So I'm gonna end this, but I want to end this on some thoughts. I want to end this on some things that I think I'd like to see that I think would help this. And help where we're at, and help where we know the game is going, which is board states and things on the table are going to matter and they're going to be meaningful. And if that's the case, that needs to be reciprocated a little bit with things that are in hand. And if you're going to go that route, I also feel there needs to be a bit more risk and reward. So I'd love to see things that give you boosts on like your next turn if you fully block something out. Like swing big like Reiner is a great risk and reward because there's a lot of risk and reward. I think it's a little bit too easy for the rewards to just take over now because he just has access to too many things. But you get cool cards like swing big. Like if the whole thing is blocked, which yeah, it could be a big freaking effort in order to do that, but also like I get a quicken token, which if I'm not if that could be useful and valuable to me. But that is a benefit that I get on my turn for successfully dealing with all of your crap. And I want to see more of those. I get something on my turn for successfully dealing with your insanity and your madness. Not you don't get as many benefits if I fully deal with it, because eventually, and we see this with FAB, eventually I've run out of ways to deal with it and I give you tempo. I still give you tempo despite doing, despite like, hey, I blocked you out. You have arguably more tempo now going into the next turn. So like, I don't necessarily know how much I really did. And that's a meaningful choice thing that doesn't matter. But like that all you got? Great one. God, I love that card. Like refresh the hand. You get to block, but you get to refresh the hand. Cool. Give me cards that like defend, if this defends a blank kind of thing. If this defends like a card of 6 or greater. If this defends against a card that has like some sort of other effect, like a dominate or a crush, or like some sort of keyword effect. I get some, maybe get some sort of bonus, or there's some sort of element for that. Like give me the risk and reward of if I'm going to do the stuff that is debilitating and I'm going to do the stuff that is so massive, let me, at least in my defense, get some sort of gain for doing this successfully. And if you're like, well, the gain is that you didn't lose. I was like, yeah, but I'm still trading off tempo. And right now there's just too much value in either not doing anything, or I can strip the need for this shit away. Give me something. Give something. I'd like to see some sort of balance in general cards. And not attack action. We'll throw away attack actions. We'll do this in defense, because no matter what, be you control or not, even control helps the win condition. Like Icelander isn't I take cards from your hand and then I don't do anything with my turn. It's I take cards from your hand and I'm still hitting you with Aether Ice Vein in the process, which is damage. So like, give me that blend. Give me that risk and reward back, because if you don't have that, all you're gonna have is just this. It's either aggro or it's control, and no matter what side of that coin it is, the cards in the hand are not going to be nearly as meaningful for everybody who is either not coming after that one aggressively and intentionally, or I actually didn't know the other one I was going for that. Like if you're not combating it directly, so that's where I'm at. That's my thought. If you're going to go board states, create more of a risk and reward factor. Make that more equally noticed. Make that more equally available. Make that generic. Make that give me some value. Give me some extra value in the sideboard. Hey, stuff is dominated. This gets a little bit of a better effect if stuff is dominated. Okay, cool. Have a side by that, or just a keyword in general, because like dominate's like a little bit too silver bullet. So like, if you think like shit like ice that is universally debilitating is like an okay thing to go with, then you might as well do the reverse of give universal defending tactics, things that also provide some element of benefit. Like, hey, this can either be used to, if you pitch this as part of Arcane Barrier, it's a D-React. Oh man, give me a D-React. D-React, if this is pitched for like Arcane Barrier, it gets some sort of extra effect or something like that. Like, okay, like cool. Give me that. That's the stuff I went back. But anyway, at this point I'm kind of rambling. And I don't want to just do that. So those are my thoughts. If you got this far, cool. If not, you can't hear this anyway. So, but I'd love to hear your thoughts and I'd love to hear where you are. And, do you see that element of, is there something worth kind of changing and looking at, or are you just in the like, just get good? And honestly, I hate that. That's so just annoyingly dumb. Of health in a game shouldn't be where FAB is right now, in my opinion. This just feels a little bit off base, and I really want this to be fun, and I really want to enjoy the idea of bringing other people into it. But right now, this is what you're up against. You're fucked unless you deal with it like directly, and I hope that's how you want to play. And if not, like, you're really just here to add time. But data is going to show you don't have a chance. That's not fun. Anyway, that's all I got. Cheers, everybody.